Maroone, a name synonymous with cars in South Florida for decades. Well, the man behind the name is Mike Maroone, President and Chief Operating Officer of AutoNation, the largest automotive retailer in the world. Mike joins me this morning to take a look back with me on the auto industry's path over the last 4 decades and maybe to peek ahead at where it's going. Mike, welcome.
Good morning, Bob.
We first met back in 1977 when you and your dad purchased a Ford dealership. That was your very first time in the business. I just learned from you that you didn't even know you were going to be running the dealership.
Right, I didn't. I was on vacation. I'd actually worked in my dad's store growing up, a Ford dealership in Buffalo, New York. But I was on vacation and I called my dad to find out what was going on, and he said, "Hey, I just bought a Ford store." And I said, "That's great." And he said, "Guess what?" And I said, "What?" He said, "You're going to run it." And I said, "Me?" I had no clue.
Okay, so you come to South Florida. There's the dealership in 1977. Full of Fords. The dealership had kind of gone under. It went bankrupt. How did you start this thing again?
Well, we started really just the way you start any business, by picking key people. We found a couple friends in town. Anthony Abraham, the legendary dealer, was a dear friend, and we started meeting people and interviewing people, and slowly built our team and opened our doors and just worked so hard. Now,
you bought a Chevrolet dealership just 3 or 4 years later, and that became the largest Chevy dealer in the state.
That's
right?
correct.
And then in 1991, you opened Maroone Auto Plaza, and that was a huge move at a very bad time, as I remember, with the economy.
Right, the interest rates were extremely high. We bought 30 acres of land out in Pembroke Pines and built what was then the world's largest dealership, and it was nerve-wracking. We'd had a very successful business in our older store, but we didn't own the real estate and wanted to control our own destiny. And again, credit to my dad. He was the visionary, and we went in and made it very successful.
Well, looking back over 4 decades at the cars that you have sold, what would you say was the low point?
Well, I think the low point, frankly, was the last 2 years, where we were literally in an automotive depression. Credit was unavailable. The credit markets were all locked up. People were losing their jobs left and right, and the level of uncertainty was very, very difficult. It was difficult on our people, but more importantly, it was difficult for our customers.
How did the way you do business change as the economy changed?
Well, I think when the economy was going down, we went into a crisis mode, and we took every expense out we could, and our goal was, as we stared into the abyss, was to survive and come out the other side even in better shape and make sure that our best people were with us along the way.
Are you disappointed in Detroit in taking so long to turn around what was bad quality in the early days?
I'm very disappointed, and I think as you look back, it was the defining move is to perpetuate that low quality over a period of years. And what's happened is the cars are much, much better. They're world-class quality, yet the perception still lingers on, and it's really hurt those brands.
When do you think Detroit turned the corner and started producing a much better quality automobile?
I think it goes back probably 5 or 6 years, but again, the perception is just coming today. And you look at Ford's product, and Ford is one of the hottest companies in the world. Their products have been great products, but only today are we gaining the purchase consideration that they deserve.
All right, so where do we go from here? What does your crystal ball tell you for the next 5 years?
Well, I think it's all about alternative technology, about hybrids, about electric cars. I think we're going to see just an explosion of new technology. On the business overall, though, we've seen a restoration of credit, and we think there's 5 or 6 great years ahead in the industry.
Mike, the General Motors and Chrysler closed a lot of dealerships, and I know that AutoNation was involved and had a lot of dealerships closed. Was that chaotic for you? How did that play on the way you did business?
You know, it was very personal, Bob. When someone comes in arbitrarily and takes an asset of yours under the guise of it's better for the whole industry, it's very, very painful. And it was very painful for our associates, very painful for our customers. We've moved beyond that, and we think the industry is in much better shape. That production push model of overstocking dealers and big incentives is gone, and we're now in a customer-driven pull, and we're very optimistic about the industry and glad to see that behind us.
Everybody has pulled back, and if you look at the number of makes of cars, American cars, that have disappeared in the last 6, 7 years, it's really incredible. Oldsmobile, Pontiac, Saturn, Hummer. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Are you surprised? Mercury, just last week. Are you surprised at the number of brands we've lost?
Frankly, I'm surprised it didn't happen sooner. There was clearly way too many brands to be supported by GM specifically, and we believe if they would have trimmed those brands down much earlier, that they may have been in a healthier shape. So, yeah, every one of them is painful, but it's very necessary.
Do you think that the manufacturers now are at a point where they have the right number of models and makes, or do you see more cuts?
Well, I don't see more cuts in the short term. I think we've been through that period, but certainly with the Chinese and the Indian products coming, there's going to be a whole other wave of products being produced around the globe that will ultimately be sold in this country.
And finally, the Toyota, the incredible things that have happened to Toyota with all the recalls, the lawsuits now, the class action lawsuits. Has that damaged Toyota's reputation beyond repair, or do you think they can still come back?
I think they can repair it. There is tremendous loyalty to the Toyota brand, and I would tell you, in our service department, 95% of the customers were understanding. They bought multiple Toyotas. They recognized that things can go wrong. There was some hysterical situations, but nowhere near as it was reported. And Toyota's in very good financial shape. Toyota wants to do the right thing for the customers. They've treated dealers and customers extraordinarily well, both in the near term and in prior times. So we're very optimistic on Toyota and believe that they will come through this just fine, but it's painful.
You see light at the end of the tunnel for the industry.
Absolutely. The industry's got 5 or 6 great years ahead.
Mike Maroone, thank you very much.
Bob, thank you for 41 years of broadcast excellence.
I really appreciate all the interviews over all these years. You've been great.
Thank you.
Again, Mike Maroone, president of AutoNation. If you'd like to learn more about Mike or AutoNation, go to maroone.com or autonation.com. We'll be right back.